In this section, we're going to look at what affects resources and also what a catchment is. So firstly, what affects a resource? A resource is very much linked with biodiversity. So that's all about a balance and a cycle between things. If we overdo something, it puts this balance off. So if you look at this picture here, there's a whole range of examples here. So we've got our influences. So something like human population growth is a significant one. Increasing the consumption, so how much of a thing we use, and reducing the efficiency of its consumption. So if we just start wasting things, then we're going to throw this balance out. The primary drivers here, so we've got things like habitat loss. So if we clear land, we take away the habitat for a lot of creatures, and that then affects this biodiversity. Invasive species, so we introduce something. So for example, when they introduced the fox or the feral cat, that had a huge impact on Australia's natural or native animals, and that in turn affected a whole food cycle down the track. Over-exploitation, so again, if we harvest too much of a thing, if we fish too much, then the fish can't recover in their population drops, and then that affects something else. We've got pollution, so that's a common one. Just by polluting the air or poisoning the waterways and things like that, it starts killing off other populations, and that in turn affects them. Climate change associated with the global warming, so we'll talk a little bit more about climate change and stuff like that, but just adjusting that, warming up the waters, making the water more acidic, having colder winters, all of these things can affect both the habitats, they can affect the production of certain resources, and that in turn affects us. So there's a huge range of things that we can do or that we do to affect this, and there's also a huge range of things we can do to try and reduce this. So a catchment. What is a catchment? A catchment, or sometimes called a watershed, is the total land area from which rainfall flows into a river, a lake, or a reservoir. So it's the entire area.
What is a watershed? Is it a shed that holds water? Nah, try again. A watershed is all of the land that drains into the same location or body of water. People tend to think only of water bodies such as rivers, lakes, and wetlands as being part of their watershed. However, any land, whether it is park, farm, forest, school parking lot, and even the soil we build our homes on is also included. Think of a watershed as a funnel, collecting all the water within a specific area and draining into the nearest body of water. Drop by drop, water is channeled into soil, groundwater, creeks and streams, making its way to larger rivers and eventually the ocean. Everyone in the world lives in a watershed. Watersheds know no political borders, whether local, national, or international. Our environment, our economy, and our society all depend on a healthy watershed.
An example of that is the Padawalunga catchment. So hopefully you've heard about this before. This is a map of it, so you can see the Adelaide Hills up here, Holdfast Bay, Marion, and this red zone is the catchment boundary. So everything in here is part of the Padawalunga catchment. So the water from the Adelaide Hills and things like that is running through all these creeks and rivers, joins up with some of the bigger ones like the Torrens and things like that, and eventually it runs out to sea and it becomes part of the Gulf St. Vincent. So this whole area of where the water flows, is trapped and is connected is the catchment zone. If we were to go a little bit bigger, we've got the Murray-Darling Basin. So this is a much, much bigger one. You can see here it takes up more than just South Australia. It tees up with New South Wales and even into Queensland. So this is a much bigger version of the same sort of thing. You can see where all the water comes in, ties in with the Murray, and you can see it eventually ends up in the oceans, but it's all linked together. So this is the bigger catchment of the Murray-Darling Basin. You hear about that a lot on the news and in social media because this is where a lot of the issues are. If we use all of the water up here for farming in Queensland, nothing comes down the Murray, and so a lot of the farmers in these zones are having huge issues where there's just no water coming down the river for them to use, and all of the animals and crops and things down here are dying because they just don't have enough water. So the Saving Water Challenge. There's a link available to you to have a look at this, but the idea is that I want you to try and save as much water as you can in 2 days. So this is not as in just go fill up all your drink bottles and show it to me. I want you to collect water that would normally be wasted by something you do or in your house. So a really common example of this is people often put a bucket in their shower, and if you're one of those people that likes to warm up the water before you get in, the bucket catches all that cold water that you don't want, and then you can take it and you can use it in your garden, and that saves you water that you would have otherwise used. So that's one example of saving water. So this is a 2-day challenge. I want you to be creative with it. Think about all the different ways that you can save water for 2 days and store it. And at the end of those 2 days, I want you to take a photo of it or show me in a video how much water you've collected and how you've thought to store it as well. So that's the other aspect. You need a place to put it. So this is the water challenge. Once you've had a look at the water challenge and had a bit of a think about how you're going to do it, where you're going to collect the water, the challenge or the task for today is the quizzes on catchments. So again, go to the link that's available within the tasks, complete the quiz, screenshot your result and post that to Canvas under the assessments tasks. And that is today's lesson on affecting resources and catchments.